Person with amnesia, I've been gathering up the clues. What is my work in this life, and who do I love? Seems we come in constellations.
I was born in 1959, the same year as Nancy Grace, Weird Al Yankovic, and Barbie. On the day my parents brought me home from the hospital, the nurses had pinned a poem to my little blue baby blanket. The poem was titled, "What is a Boy?" Sort of an instruction manual for parents, I imagine. Well, my mom died a few years ago, and while we were going through her things, in her top dresser drawer, I found that poem, "What is a Boy?" And I couldn't help but think about myself as a boy, a gay boy, growing up in Montana in the 60s, long before Oprah. This poem probably was very little help to my mother. But it's gotten me to thinking about boys, how different we can all be. And so I've collected some stories from my life and from other lives about what boys learn on their way to becoming men. What is a boy?
Between the innocence of babyhood and the dignity of manhood, we find a delightful creature called a boy. Boys come in assorted sizes, weights, and colors, but all boys have the same creed: to enjoy every second of every minute of every hour of every day, and to protest with noise, their only weapon, when their last minute is finished and the adult males pack them off to bed at night. Boys are found everywhere, on top of, underneath, inside of, climbing on, swinging from, running around, or jumping to. Mothers love them. Little girls hate them. Older sisters and brothers tolerate them. Adults ignore them, and heaven protects them. A boy is truth with dirt on its face, wisdom with bubble gum in its hair, and the hope of the future with a frog in its pocket. When you're busy, a boy is an inconsiderate, bothersome, intruding jangle of noise. When you want him to make a good impression, his brain turns to jelly. Or else he becomes a savage, sadistic jungle creature bent on destroying the world and himself with it.
Calling Johnny. I am ready to attack with Johnny 7, OMA, the one-man army.
It's 7 guns in 1. Let's count them. 1, it's a grenade launcher. 2, the armor gun. 3, anti-tank gun.
Takes a lot of time getting the signal and eyeing the batter, but here comes the pitch. And there she goes. It's a long one to left field. That's heading for the wall as Barrett keeps going back, back, back. And you can kiss it goodbye. It's a home run for Mazereski, and the Pirates win 10-9 to become the new baseball champions of the world.
Who would have thought being a guy, having a girl
like it. To be sure, look for Johnny 7 OMA, one-man army, and get the micro helmet phone set. Micro helmet, micro helmet, micro helmet, micro helmet.
When I was a boy, I flew a big jet plane. When I was a boy, I never feared the danger. When I was a boy, I sailed the Spanish Main. When I was a boy, I rode with the Lone Ranger.
My grandfather was a gold miner. My father was a farmer. I am a mime. I grew up out in the Wild West, small town in Montana. One of my first memories of ways that I would make any money, I would drag my little red wagon around our neighborhood during hunting season, collecting deer hides. I would then drag them over to the Pacific Hide and Fur and trade them in for cold, hard cash. And like every other little boy, I rode my bike. I mowed lawns for the widows in town, and in the evenings I would go downstairs and stand in front of a mirror, singing into a hairbrush, lip-syncing Karen Carpenter songs. Just your average small-town boy, pre-Glee. But at age 14, I longed for more glamour than fur could provide. I longed for adventure, so I hopped on my bike and I crossed the Missoula County Bridge, and I applied for my very first real job at the 4B's Cafe. The 4B's. Bobby, Bev, Bernice, and Billy, the Hainline family. They opened the 4B's Cafe off Highway 93. I have absolutely no restaurant experience, but I am very enthusiastic. I am very well dressed, and I have been called, among other things, artistic. I'm hired as the salad bar boy. Now, this is 1973. Salad bars are at the height of their popularity. And I would like to think that the salad bar here at 4B's is cutting edge. Every morning I rush to work and I stir up buckets full of Cuke and Tom Delight, carrot raisin medley, ambrosia salad. I create a state map of Montana entirely out of Jell-O. I make sculptures in the ice. I build little salad dressing labels in the shape of highway signs. Oh my God, I love this job. Well, one afternoon while I was busy refreshing the salad bar, I had just completed spelling out "drive safely" in radishes when Bev, my supervisor, asked to speak with me over by the taxidermy display. Bev tells me she's taking me off salad bar duty. She says it's all just a little too much. She says I'm just a little too much. And from now on, it's best if I just work in the back. Well, it wasn't that Bev was being a bitch. I mean, it wasn't that she was just being a bitch. She probably thought that she was protecting me.
A boy is a composite. He has the appetite of a horse, the digestion of a sword swallower, the energy of a pocket-sized atomic bomb, and the curiosity of a cat.
Growing up is a time of change. Everything seems to happen at once.
Hey, you know something?
No, what?
I had a wet dream last night.
An accident that could lead to opportunity.
Wet dream? What's that?
Oh, you know, the sperm comes out of your penis.
Sperm?
It was something new to Bill, this business of nocturnal emissions, just as a lot of other things were new.
Nobody else can cram into one pocket a rusty knife, a half-eaten apple, 3 feet of string, an empty Bull Durham sack, 2 gumdrops, 6 cents, a slingshot, a chunk of some unknown substance, and a genuine supersonic cold ring with a secret compartment. A boy is a magical creature. You can lock him out of your workshop, but you can't lock him out of your heart.
Go ahead to the fair, and it's 2 for $1. Won't you step inside? Guess your age, guess your weight, or you can take a ride. Mount up on the big wheel and ride her to the sky.
My Uncle Davey was mean. He was old and he was mean from my very first memories of him. My Uncle Davey was my mom's younger brother. They were born very close together. My mom was born July 1923 and Davey December 1924. Irish twins, you might say. Well, because of this, they were always very close. And because of this, every single Sunday when I was a kid, Uncle Davey and Aunt Toots would come over for their Sunday visit. Sunday mornings, you guys. You know, when you're still in your pajamas because you got to sleep in, you're eating your cinnamon toast, reading the Sunday funnies, and in the driveway would pull Uncle Davey and Aunt Toots with their Marlboros hanging off their lips. My Uncle Davey. Now, the combination of smoking unfiltered cigarettes and having asbestosis gave my Uncle Davey this horrifying cough. He would hack and hop and wheeze out a couple of, God damn it. I never liked my Uncle Davey. And my dad didn't like him very much either because Uncle Davey was mean. My dad was small, so Davey'd say things like, "Hey, short shit! How you doing, short crotch?" One time they were fixing our roof, they got into disagreement. Uncle Davey said, in front of all of us, "You're nothing but a goddamn dumb farmer." Well, that was about the end of their speaking terms. Uncle Davey could be mean. Now, he teased everybody. My sisters, they could give it right back to him. But me, I was a delicate child. And I was destroyed by most everything Uncle Davey sent my way. He thought I was a little light in the loafers. "Hey, Sally, how you doing, Wilhelmina?" I was good in school. "Oh, you think you're so goddamn smart, don't you?" Early on, I learned to take Uncle Davey's visits as an opportunity to go downstairs and practice my cornet. I would usually start off with a rousing rendition of Anchors Away. Uncle Davey'd been in the Navy. I thought this might be a way to soften him up a bit. And you know, you guys, I think it actually helped. Because when I would have band concerts as a kid, Uncle Davey would show up. And later on, when I got involved in drama, started doing plays, Uncle Davey very often would be out there in the dark. Now, he never acknowledged this. We never talked about it. But I would find out Uncle Davey would be there. And I found it kind of strange because we really didn't seem to like each other very much. Well, I was complaining about my Uncle Davey a few years back to my mom, and she told me this little story about her little brother. Now, my granddad was a gold miner, and in between prospecting, he worked as a lumberjack. So Mom and her brother Davey spent their early childhoods running around logging camps and mining towns and hunting lodges of Montana in the early 1920s. So out there somewhere, Davey, when he was just a little bit more than a toddler, Davey came upon a doll. And he loved this doll. He carried it with him everywhere. He slept with it. He ate with it. And now I'm imagining the son of a Montana lumberjack dancing through the fields, skipping over cattle crossings, holding onto a doll. Well, my grandmother had asthma, so they had to move her out of the mountains so she could breathe. So a decision was made that they all had to move into town. This was time for my mom to start the first grade. Well, they'd hoped they could leave that doll behind, but oh no, Davey would take it along with him. So they rented a house out on Chaplin Street, and Mom said for her it was heaven because Chaplin Street was lined with houses, and those houses were filled with kids. And for the very first time, she had other children to play with. She was in heaven. But for Davey, not so much, because these city kids did not think much of a boy playing with a dolly, so they'd chase him home, they'd push him into the ditch, they'd play keep away with his doll. Mom said she had to run interference many, many times. Well, just a week or so after they moved into town, Mom tells me she came down into the kitchen one morning for breakfast, and her folks were looking out the back door. And out there behind the house, they could all see Davey. he has strung up that doll high up on the clothesline. He's found a great big stick. It's taller than he is. And he is beating that doll to death. The stuffing floating down around him. My Uncle Davey would become the toughest kid on Catlin Street, the best fighter at the Franklin School, and the meanest man I ever knew.
There once was a man who just couldn't cry. He hadn't cried for years and for years. Napalm babies are the movie love story. For instance, could not produce tears. As a child he had cried as all children will. But at some point his tear ducts ran dry. He grew to be a man. The feces hit the fan. Things got bad, but he couldn't cry.
I'm not one of the pretty kind. All of my ones are simple. I know what's on my mind.
Upon the half-decayed veranda of a single-frame house that stood out on the edge of town, the town of Winesburg, Ohio, a little old man walked nervously up and down. And out across the field that had seeded with clover, he could see the highway upon which went a wagon full of berry pickers coming home from a day of work out in the fields. He could hear their voices, boys and girls, teasing one another. And one of those voices called out across the field to him, "Hey, Wing! Hey, Wing Biddlebaum! Comb your hair, Wing! It's falling in your eyes! Wing Biddlebaum! Wing Biddlebaum! Wing Biddlebaum! Wing Biddlebaum!" The story of Wing Biddlebaum is a story of hands, their restless activity, like the beating of wings of an imprisoned bird. That's what had given him his name, Wing. Wing Biddlebaum, haunted and beset by a ghostly band of doubts, had never felt in any way a part of this town where he'd lived for more than 20 years. Wing Biddlebaum, he rarely ever spoke. But when he did, he talked most with his hands, these slender, expressive fingers, forever active and forever striving to conceal themselves in his pockets or behind his back. In Winesburg, his hands were known mostly because of their activity. With these hands, Wing Biddlebaum could pick as high as 140 quarts of strawberries in a single day. His hands became his distinguishing feature, the source of his fame. Now the other workers out in the field, they knew there must be something wrong. What the devil's the matter with that fella anyway? Just leave him be. Leave him be. Leave him be. No one ever asked. No one ever wanted to know. But there was something about those hands that had something to do with his fear of everyone and of everything. So let's take a look back at the story of these hands. 20 years ago, Wing Biddlebaum, he lived in another town, he lived in another state, he had another name. His name was Adolph Myers. Adolph Myers was a school teacher in a small town in Pennsylvania. Adolph Myers was beloved by the children of his school. He was one of those men that was meant by nature to be a teacher of children. He was a man who ruled by a power so gentle that it often passes as lovable weakness. Often you could find him out in the evenings walking with the children, or maybe sitting up late out on the schoolhouse steps, just lost in a kind of dream. And here and there would go his hands, caressing a shoulder, or playing about with the tousled hair. When he spoke, his voice, it was soft and musical. In a way, the voice, the touching of a shoulder, playing with hair, it was all part of this schoolmaster's effort to carry a dream into young minds. Under the touch of his hand, doubt and disbelief, it went out of these children's minds, and they too began to dream. And then, the tragedy. A half-witted boy from this school became enamored with his schoolmaster. He imagined many things, and then he went forth to tell his dreams as fact. Well, through this Pennsylvania town went a shiver. Dark, shadowy doubts that had been in men's minds about this Adolph Myers. They were now galvanized into beliefs. The tragedy, it didn't linger. Young boys were pulled up out of their beds at night and questioned. Sure, he always put his arms about me. Yeah, he had his fingers in my hair. The next afternoon, the saloon keeper came out to the schoolhouse. He came to the door and called Adolph Myers out into the schoolyard, and he began beating him with his fists. I'll teach you to put your hands on my boy. When he grew tired of beating the master, he began kicking him about the yard as the children watched. A crowd gathered. It was raining. One of the men brought with him a rope. Adolph Myers would be driven from that Pennsylvania town in the night. The crowd chasing after him, throwing rocks and sticks and great balls of soft mud at this figure that screamed and ran faster and faster into the darkness. For 20 years now, Adolph Myers had lived in Weinsberg. He was 40, but he looked 65. The name Biddlebaum, he found it on a box, printed on a box in a freight house as he ran through some eastern Ohio town. So he took that name, and the name Wing, well, you know, that'd be given to him later. He had an elderly aunt, a black-toothed old woman who lived out on the edge of Weinsberg, so he came to live with her until she died. Then he became a day laborer out in the fields, going timidly about, forever striving to conceal his hands. Though he didn't understand what had happened in that Pennsylvania town, he just knew that his hands, they must be to blame. Again and again, he could hear the voices of those fathers saying to him, "Keep your hands off my boy! I'll teach you to touch my child!" As twilight fell across the field, Wing Biddlebaum went back up onto the veranda, into his house. He cut slices of bread, he spread honey upon them. And in this darkness, he could no longer see his hands, and at last, they were quiet. Lighting a lantern, he washed up his few dishes and noticed some stray white breadcrumbs on the cleanly washed floor. So, taking the lantern down to a low stool, he began picking up the crumbs and bringing them to his mouth, one by one. In this dense blotch of light, the kneeling figure looked like a priest, going through decade after decade of his rosary.
He never draws first blood. He only fights back. The first time was for himself. The second time was for his country. This time,
Grandma, something went wrong.
It's for his friend.
In fact, there are over 300,000 Hooters Girl alumni in the world today.
Hooters taught me the value of serving others.
If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one.
He is the most interesting man in the world. I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis.
Me, sensitive?
Tragic story, a teenage girl who took her own life last year after she became the victim. 18-year-old Tyler Clementi, freshman at Rutgers University in New Jersey, committed suicide by jumping off the George Washington Bridge.
Jamie Rodemeyer uploads this video to YouTube.
Hi, this is Jamie from Buffalo, New York, and I'm just here to tell you that it does get better.
Last Sunday, he was found dead after an apparent suicide.
I don't know why I took that road. Maybe God had sent me.
authorities plan to file murder charges in Monday's death of Matthew Shepard, a gay university student who was pistol-whipped and tied to a split-rail fence in an attack denounced nationwide as a hate crime. Shepard, 21, had been in a coma since a young bicyclist found him about 12 hours after he was tethered to a post in near-freezing temperatures outside Laramie, Wyoming. 4 suspects are being held on a variety of charges.
There was blood everywhere, except where the tears had washed the blood away.
They say the sounds we make will travel through space forever. Through our spinning solar system, through the wheeling disk of our galaxy, through what we imagine our universe to be, we can't begin to imagine. They say we cannot call a sound back, cannot erase a sound, can't catch it up and change it, no matter how many hymns and prayers we send chasing after it. A sound goes on and on and on. Can you imagine the sounds he made? How they must have echoed in the clear Wyoming air. Can you imagine the sounds that made? Pistol whipping, shattered his skull. Can you imagine the sounds he made as he hung tied to a fence, broken, bleeding, with a bitter night and the whole next day? Can you imagine the sound she made when she heard what they did to her child? The sound she made, sound she made, sound she made. These sounds are streaking through space forever. These sounds are shattering stars. These sounds will shatter. Brightness forever. We can't begin to imagine. A sound goes on and on and on. A sound goes on and on and on. A sound goes on and on and on.
I am standing in the middle of Main Street, Shoto, Montana, population 1,972. It is the middle of October. It is the middle of the prairie. This is exactly the spot where the Rocky Mountains come tumbling down out of Canada into northern Montana. There's nothing out here but wind and wheat and me. I am here in Shoto to be a visiting artist. The Shoto Arts Council gets just about enough money to bring in one artist a year, and this year, it's me. Listen, I love small towns. I'm from a small town, but this is a really small town. There's just a few churches and a few more bars. I'm actually standing in front of the Buccaneer Bar. I am waiting on my artist liaison, Ralph. Well, I stand here just taking in that great big sky, and eventually I hear a car rattling up from the east side of town, and up pulls this rusted out old Chevy, broken windows on every side. I can see this giant old farm dog taking up the whole back seat. In fact, the entire car is just coated with dog hair. And out of the door steps Ralph Paulus in a cloud of dander. Ralph Paulus is filthy. He's just covered in dirt. There's shit all over his shoes. He has these sapphires for eyes. He walks around the car, shakes my hand, and says, "Well, I do believe you're the first homosexual mime we've had here in Shoto." This could be a long week. Well, Ralph reaches in his filthy Carhartt vest to find that goddamn schedule. It's going to talk me through my week here. By the look of things, I am going to meet every single person in Shoto. I will work with the third graders on Hopi Indian traditions. I will coach the bulldog mascot for the high school football team. I will visit a number of one-room schools out in the area. I'll drop by the developmentally disabled adults' home, attend evening rehearsals of the community theater production of Oliver, give workshops to the Senior Citizen Clown Brigade, and at the end of my whirlwind week, I will perform my solo show for the entire county. They are getting their money's worth out of this mime. Well, Ralph drives me out to the west end of town to the motel. The motel. It has 5 units. I'm the only one there. And then he's got to go, he tells me, because he's got to get back out to the farm and pick up his 80-year-old mother so they can get to their African drumming circle. Shoto has an African drumming circle with 50 members. This is my first indication that Shoto will be full of surprises. Day 1, I am driving through the wheat fields to Elk Ridge, Montana. Deer are flipping back and forth over the car. The students from 2 other one-room schools are going to meet us out here for a total audience of 25, plus some ranchers and some teachers. They're all gathered in this multi-purpose room to see a classical pantomime show. Oh God, this is going to be good. And as audiences go, they are brilliant. The kids sit on this blue wrestling mat, just completely wrapped in awe. As soon as the show ends, they all have questions. I end up signing autographs for every single person there. I teach the mime walk to some rancher's wife. And I drive out of Elk Ridge feeling like I've just played Carnegie Hall. I'm heading back into town now. It's starting to snow. Antelope are leading the way. I pull up in front of the Buccaneer Bar. It's the only place you can get lunch around this place. I notice that I have parked right next to a tractor. There is a handwritten sign on the door of the Buccaneer Bar that says, "Please remove manure as best you can." Inside the Buccaneer Bar, a sea of hats. Stetsons, John Deere, International Harvester. And this is probably a good time to tell you what I'm wearing. A powder blue down vest with a coordinating hoodie. I've left my scarf in the car, thank God. I noticed this old geezer across the room just looking real hard at me. He starts making his way through the crowd toward me, and I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. The closer he gets to me, the dirtier I realize he is. He's dust from hat to boot. He's drinking a red beer. It's 11 in the morning. He gets up to me, eyeball to eyeball, and says, "You're not from around here, are you, son?" I say, "No, actually, I'm from New York City." And before I can say another word, this guy says, "Are you the mime?" He shakes my hand, thanks me for coming. This guy buys my lunch. He talks my ear off about Danny Kaye and Red Skelton and, oh, that fella on Laugh-In that got hit in the head by the purse. Boy, howdy. He's so genuine. He's so glad that I've come. He walks me to the door of the Buccaneer and says to me, "We don't get to see many of your kind around here. But kids need to see this, that there's other ways of communicating besides hitting and yelling." Well, I do my first workshop that afternoon at the high school, and a lot of people show up. The Senior Citizen Clown Brigade, very well represented. The two Stott brothers, they're 2 out of 10 Stott brothers. They're rancher boys. They all work the ranch after school, but these two got permission to stay late because they wanted to come to a mime class. But the jewel of the day for me is this boy named Jeremiah. He's a Native American boy. He comes riding up on his bicycle. He hardly says a word, but he does tell me that he doesn't know what mime is, but he loves to dance, and that's what brought him to the door. And in the first few moments of this workshop, I can tell that this Jeremiah is brilliant. When he moves, it's like he's receiving messages. Well, this workshop's scheduled to last for 1 hour. The Jeremiah and the Stott boys, they stay for 3. After it's over, I'm looking around this place for Jeremiah. I can't find this kid. He's virtually disappeared. Well, I attend my first rehearsal that evening of the Prairie Mountain Players production of Oliver. It is a motley cast of lumbering Swedes and Norwegians, these Montana homestead stock just coming in to try out for the play. The woman playing Nancy's never been on a stage in her life. Mr. Bumble is the Methodist minister. The guy playing Sykes, the bad guy, is this refrigerator of a rancher named Dan with a glass eye and a mullet. He actually terrifies me. But the one I have to tell you about is Brian. He's about 16 years old. He's from a little town called Augusta down the road. He's playing the Artful Dodger. Brian, there's no other way to describe this. Brian is a flaming queen. He bevels, he minces. He's the Paul Lynde of the prairie. I'm very concerned for Brian's well-being immediately. But I can tell right away in this rehearsal that everybody loves Brian. He sings like an angel, he's hilarious, and on the weekends he does everyone's hair. Everybody's here. Ralph is playing clarinet, his wife Myrna is on the piano, the dentist plays drums. Everybody gathers together all winter long in the Rialto movie house that doesn't have a lot of heat to practice putting on a play. And at the end of every rehearsal, they gather together in the lobby to sing through their favorite song from Oliver, "Consider yourself one of the family." Well, this week rolls on. I continue to get my mind blown. Everywhere I go, people are thanking me for coming. Seemingly everywhere I go, Jeremiah comes sliding by on a bicycle. He never talks to me, but now he started emailing me. So we have this silent conversation going on. I go into the cafe. "Hey, Bill, pull up a chair. We'll make room for you." In fact, the town has a potluck for me on Thursday night over at Corlene's house. Everybody shows up. Ralph and Myrna come in with this gigantic kettle full of venison. Ralph says, if God didn't intend for us to eat animals, he wouldn't have made them out of meat. There's pies and cakes and Tupperware containers full of God knows what, and buckets of beer, and oh my God, the conversation goes in so many directions. From the stoplight they're proposing out on Main Street, to dead deer out on the highway, to hate crimes legislation and that poor Matt Shepard, to UFO sightings. It's a prairie salon. Well, after dessert, we all gather around the police scanner, which, if you haven't gotten yours yet, it's better than TV. This is where I learn about the old guy in town who rides around on his lawnmower. Sometimes he forgets his medication. Sometimes he forgets his clothes. Somebody in town just rounds him up and gets him on back home. Oh, yes, we love the diversity here, says Myrna. Keeps things interesting. I asked Myrna about this boy Jeremiah, who I'm so drawn to. She just tells me that's not a good situation. There's a lot of alcohol and abuse in that home. I just don't know how that story is going to end. Well, it's my last day in Shoto, Montana. I'm performing for the entire county in the high school auditorium. So I've set up, I peek out the side door to get a look up at the sky, and I see pickup trucks coming from all directions, kicking up dust, just coming into town to see that mime show. The parking lot's filling up. There's a lot of pickups, of course. There's Ralph and Myrna's car. There's a station wagon with a deer tied on top of it. And right over in the end, I swear to God, is a lawnmower. Jeremiah comes riding up in his bicycle, so I invite him in the side door. He comes inside and just sits there silently. He watches me as I paint my face white. Okay, I do my show, and I have to tell you, Shoto shows up. Everybody is here. Ralph is beside himself. Damn! This is a bigger crowd than we had for the cowboy poets. Everybody's here. It's one of the highlights of my entire life. Everybody comes, except the folks over at the developmentally disabled home. They can't make it. So I've arranged that I'm going to stop by there on my way out of town. So here I am. I'm setting up in this little community room there. And while I am, a worker comes in helping this very severely disabled woman get into place. She's got one of those giant pink helmets on. The worker calls me to the side and apologizes. She can't control her voice or her movements. She repeats things over and over and over. She can be very distracting. So, I do my final performance in Shoto, Montana, within this half moon of wheelchairs, to the perfect soundtrack of this woman saying over and over again, "This is love, this 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 is love," as if it's the only thing she knows. This is love, 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 this is love.
Just all the children, we're all just all the children, we're all just all the children, we're all just all the children. $2 for a pair. Must have been made by the guy in the store. They're strange. I don't care. Sweet ballerina turns on her Johnny toes. He lifts her up and carries her. How come I'm not one of those? I do my dancing in combat boots. I don't look good in a tutu. Deep in a drawer, bury them. These shoes, you gotta hide. Only can wear them when nobody's home, or when you're talking on the telephone. Oh, teacher, can you find me somewhere to be pretty in my pink ballet slippers, pink ballet slippers, pink ballet slippers? I wear 'em to sleep, I wear 'em to dream, I wear 'em to sleep.
My Uncle Davey, his lungs, they'd finally do him in. Every time I'd go out to visit my mom in Montana, she would encourage me to visit Uncle Davey. He wasn't able to make it to our house for his Sunday visits anymore. He was spending a lot of time out in his garage where he had a wood shop. Uncle Davey liked to build things. The last time I saw my Uncle Davey, he was out in his garage, huddled up to his workbench, little old man tethered to an oxygen tank. But my Uncle Davey had begun building doll houses with doors that could open and close and crown molding. Doll houses. Still, no dolls. I spent a lot of time in small towns. A few years ago, I was out in rural Pennsylvania. I was doing workshops and performances from school to school. I'd been on the road a long time, probably too long. I knew this because I was in my rental car one day and I heard myself out loud pointing out the Dairy Queen to my imaginary son in the seat next to me. Clearly it was time to pull over for a while. I stopped to get some food. Oh my God, those two words I dread. Family restaurant. I go inside anyway, and the place, it looks a lot like the 4Bs, circa 1972. There's the salad bar right over there. And as I'm eating my dinner, I happen to look up. I see this high school-aged boy in a white apron. He's carrying a big bowl across the room. And from my seat, I watch him. With great finesse, he is refreshing that salad bar. When I pay my bill, I catch his eye and give him a... Last year, about this time, I was giving a workshop out west, small college in a small town, and after the workshop, this student comes up to me and says, "Hey, my friend knows you, but he's very shy. He doesn't want to come up and say hello." And I said, "Really? What's his name?" "Jeremiah. You came to his high school a few years back?" Jeremiah was in this workshop. Of course, he's now a grown man, so I'm looking all over the building for this guy. He's virtually disappeared. But his friend tells me Jeremiah got to college on a baseball scholarship. He's now studying drama. And he finally does appear for me on Facebook. So our silent conversation continues. And I must tell you, in the last year, so many things have come to me in my life that I never, ever thought would happen. Well, the biggest of all is I got married this last year, you guys. We can do that in New York State, too. You guys, I could join the army and tell you about it. And in the most miraculous of experiences, I had a baby. Well, I mean, wait a minute, I didn't have a baby. No, I helped my friends have a baby. And it's a boy. And he's perfect. I mean, he didn't come with a poem attached to him, but I mean, he is perfect. And he's gotten me to thinking a lot about what makes a boy a man.
A boy is truth with dirt on its face.
He never draws first blood.
I heard you were kind of sensitive.
And what do I know? This is love. This is love. This is love. This is love. This is love.
Well, I know your life has been hard. tell you that you're special and that you treasure such great charms, and that you always keep my heart full. But I'm hardly speaking a word. I'm hardly speaking a word. And I know these things should be heard, but I'm hardly speaking a word. Your struggle never changes me. Never be able to see the things you see. And they say that you see things differently. And just because it's different doesn't